Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Paddle the World in 60 minutes interactive. So a little bit of a different format this week. We have a live audience, so I think it'll be very appropriate if we actually include you in some of the discussions. Now, Paddle the World in 60 minutes, as you know, is a partnership production between myself and Sonia at Sip Cellars Flying Fish and Pat and Liz Bradley at Heat International. And it's basically in line with the American Constitution. It's for the paddlers, or by the paddlers, for the paddlers, and of the paddlers, or some sort of configuration of that description. Okay, it's about news and views and information to keep you informed, especially in these days of coronavirus. Slightly new format. Now, as I say, let me explain that for a minute. So to get the best out of the interviews, we've got a few interviews coming up. What I suggest you do is go on to Speaker View, and that way you'll get the interviewee and the interviewer. You can manage that from yourself. We also have some presentations where we'll invite you, for example, when I'll explain it in a minute, when the guests speak, at the end of it, you can ask some questions. We'll have a few minutes of questions from the audience. So you're all going to stay on mute. And when I say please, and when I say to you, have we any questions from the audience, then it's for you to come up, unmute yourself. And if we have two people talking at once, then we can manage it from there. Okay, so we'll try that. It's a new way of doing things. And the other thing, we've got a pre-recorded interview from New Zealand. So today, what we have by way of program is you have me. Unfortunately, I'll be talking to you, but I'll be talking about something that's really important to me, and that is what makes you happy. That's for about 10 minutes, and I've got a little PowerPoint to show you. We'll then switch to Mr. Mike Haslam. Mike Haslam probably needs very little introduction. He is, I'm sure you know, the founding father of the British Dragon Boat Association, something like 40 years ago, the European Dragon Boat Federation, which celebrates its 30-year anniversary this year, and the International Dragon Boat Federation, which celebrates its 30th year next year. He's also the president of the BDA and the honorary president of the IDBF. What I really like about Mike, apart from being a mate of mine, is he's still engaged. He's young at heart, he's still involved and still involved in pushing the sport forward. And what a great situation to have. We're then going to move, we're going to be talking about basically the first 40 years of the dragon boat sport and future developments. That's quite an interesting topic as well. We'll then switch after a few questions to Dr. Leila Ataei, making a popular return. And Leila will be talking, she's a sports scientist and a member of the EDBF Medical Commission. She'll be talking about vitamin D and respiratory infection. Now, that's quite an interesting subject because a lot of media interest in vitamin D and any possible health benefits. And obviously, we're talking about respiratory infections at the moment, COVID-19, so some possible benefits there. We're then going to switch to a pre-recorded interview. I interviewed Meri Gibson. You may know she's the president of the IBCPC, International Breast Cancer Paddlers Commission. I had to get up very early because she's in New Zealand, and that's an 11-hour difference. And she'll be talking about the IBCPC now and looking forwards with specific regard to the unique challenges that are existing at the moment for people who are immunosuppressed or currently going through treatment. We'll then switch to Mike Mondrall, who's in Central Florida, and he's got a shorter segment, which is just called One of the Girls, just one of the girls. After that, we're going to switch back to Pat, and Pat will round off and give you a look forward to what you can expect and anticipate for next week. Now, I'll just do a screen share for you. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about. Paddle World in 60 minutes, interactive, what makes you happy? Now, if you have a look at the screen share, what you basically got is the International Space Station. Paddle World in 60 minutes, the space station in this week where we took another step into manned space flight, travels or circumnavigates the globe in 90 minutes. So it seems quite appropriate. And if you, eventually I'm going to find somebody who's going to take some of those solar panels off and put some paddles on there, and then we'll have paddling the world in 60 minutes or 60 minutes plus. So that's what that is basically all about. Okay, so what makes you happy? Now, that's me in a jovial place. I'm just going to talk you through this. Now, I've got my own little happy strategy. I'm not suggesting you follow it. I'll just talk you through it for what it's worth. And I've been doing this for the last 3 months, and lots of people are doing stuff like this. So now we're taking tentative steps back into paddling, us in single boats. I think you as well. Some crews are going out in full boats and all sorts of crazy stuff, but just the general sort of stuff. So what I've been looking at, my little happy strategy for the last 3 months is I'm focusing myself on getting back into paddling. Now, I started some time ago, so good food and nutrition, fairly obvious, and I took the opportunity over the last few months to really examine what I was eating and making sure that what I was putting into my highly tuned machine, this thing here, is going to perform to its optimum, not just in terms of sporting capability, but also in terms of its response to any infections, immunity, that sort of thing. So if I'm putting good food in the machine, then my output is likely to be more optimized or maybe even boosted. I've been doing some personal health monitoring. I don't mean I've been having a checkup every day. I've been just monitoring myself. I've been measuring my temperature, not because I'm overly concerned about catching the coronavirus, but I wanted to know what my baseline stats were. So for example, now I know on a daily basis, my temperature range is 35.2 to 35.8. Sonia, my wife, 35.6, that sort of thing. So I've got an idea of the fluctuations in my personal health. I've been getting great sleep and rest. I've been getting absolutely fantastic sleep and rest. And if you listened to my last segment a few weeks ago, I was talking about the restorative benefits of sleep. I can't overemphasize that enough, how good sleep is for you. Even if I go training, I'll come back and I have a nap. That's partly because I'm half Mediterranean, and that's what we do in the Mediterranean, or used to do so. Regular exercise, really, really important. Doesn't have to be top-end exercise, just getting out, in this case in a boat or whatever, keeping myself as fit and agile as I can, given my 58 years young. Avoiding infection. Now, what I've got to say, I'm not necessarily specifically talking about the coronavirus, but for example, our cat, we have cats here, Sonia's a vet, and a cat brought in a mouse the other day, decided to eat the mouse and then decided to throw up the mouse on the carpet. So I've got a biohazard straight away. And if you're not aware, a dismembered mouse is a possible source of salmonella, leptospirosis, and a hantavirus. And all of those things are potentially fatal. So it needs a certain level of, not ingenuity, just sense in terms of dealing with that and maintaining some sort of infection avoidance. Another thing I'm doing, avoiding stress, laughing more. And that's a bit about what I'm talking about today. And just small acts of kindness. As it happens, you may not detect it from my voice, I've had a fairly rough week. And it just happened, a friend of mine in India, of all places, a coach in India, sent me a nice little email, just a little sort of encouraging email, didn't know what sort of week I had, and that sort of thing. A small act of kindness was really helpful to me, just to pick me up and send me on my way. But avoiding stress is really good for the immune system. And the last thing is emotional intelligence. Lots of threats, lots of unknowns, and you always fear what you don't understand. So I've made a point of learning, researching as much as I can about not just COVID-19, vitamin D, all sorts of things. So I can respond sensibly rather than going off at the deep end. And I say that because I've got a friend who's just come back from New Zealand. They've been in a bubble for 6 months, and he thinks everyone's going to kill everybody in the UK because he's just not used to the way we've been doing things. Okay. How about this then? Be young, be foolish, be happy. That is actually my business plan for the next 50 years. Okay. And I can see Mike Haslam smiling there because I think that's his business plan as well, to be honest with you. Be young, be foolish, be happy. If I said to you in a dragon boat, where is the engine room? I suspect you'll probably say to me something along the lines of, it's in the middle of the boat. Yeah. When I ask my crews where the engine room is, they always say that to me. And I say to them, actually, no, as far as I'm concerned, the engine room starts at the dragon's nose and ends at the tip of the dragon's tail. But really where I want to get to here is if somebody says to me, where is the engine room? To me, I would say to them, it's where I am. So remember that if you're ever in a boat with me and ask you where the engine room is, it's where you are. And I really mean that. And I'll make the link there to being happy. So where is the happiest place on earth? As far as I'm concerned, the happiest place on earth is inside my head. But statistically speaking, the happiest place is actually Bhutan. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Bhutan, but they measure in that society, not gross domestic product, but since 1972, they've measured GNH, gross national happiness, okay? And it's not a nonsense thing, it's actually a government strategy and part of the constitution since 2008. And they measure things like, they have 4 pillars. They have good governance, environmental conservation, preservation, sustainable economic development, cultural promotion, that sort of stuff. And they have 9 domains. They include other stuff about psychological well-being, health, living standards, that sort of thing. What a wonderful place to live. And yet they do have their problems. There's a 900,000 population and a lot of them are in poverty. But it's very much a cultural thing. So being happy is a very cultural thing. And the reason I'm saying this to you, because the more happy you are, it's scientifically proven, the better your immune responses to any infections or threats that are thrown your way. It's a very Buddhist philosophy, but if you take the religion out of Buddhism, it's about living a good life, isn't it? And that sort of stuff. So where is your happy place, and how do you get there? And do you have to make a positive effort to go into a happy place, or can you get there artificially? This is a terracotta warrior. Now, this is actually what I want to talk to you about, laughing yoga. Now, hands up if you've heard of laughing yoga. And I can see some smiles on your faces, right? So you must know about it. Also known as Hasya yoga. It's a voluntary thing. I do this with my crews. I did it in China, and we actually got the Chinese guards to laugh. And that's quite a exceptional feat, actually. It's one of the major feats of my life, getting the Chinese guards to laugh. There are definite psychological and physiological benefits. And the basis of it is your body cannot tell the difference between real and fake. So in laughing yoga, and there's laughing yoga teachers, there's 5,000 clubs worldwide. There's about 200 laughing yoga clubs in the US. Fake it till you make it. Your body can't differentiate. And basically, if you laugh more, then what you're actually doing is decreasing cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and adrenaline, and you're increasing endorphins. And we do a little experiment in it. Endorphins, what they do is they enhance healing. They relieve pain. They strengthen your immune system. Again, scientifically established. They decrease dementia, if you're worried about dementia. I'm not at the moment just yet. They strengthen the brain. What I mean by that is they promote blood flow around the brain, and they keep people happy. They're the feel-good hormones. They're the hormones that you produce, like when you're going for a run, and you know, it's the, what do you call it? The runner's high, the paddler's high. It's a whole body workout. Now, so much from that. I'm going to put you on gallery view. And before I hand over to talking to Mike, I'd like to do me a little interactive exercise. Could you please, I'm on gallery view now. Can you just show me your hands? It's interactive. Can you show me your hands? Okay. That includes Mr. Bradley. One hand, that's good. Okay. Can you now clap once and go, ha? Over to you. Right. Once again, I'm going to unmute you this time. Right. Clap once, go ha. A little bit more enthusiasm. Ha ha. I've even got that involved. Okay, ready? Ha ha. One more. Okay, right. That's the end of my talk. How do you feel? If you feel happy, all you've done is trick your body into making yourself feel happy, right? You faked it till you make it. And what I do now, I'm not saying this is conducting life. If anyone pees me off, and it occasionally happens, I come off the phone or I come off the call or whatever. I was chatting to somebody yesterday and they just weren't interested in what I spoke about. And I came off the phone and I just laughed. I didn't laugh at them. That's important. I didn't do that. They weren't there. I just laughed about the situation. And I just changed my whole frame of mind. So worth thinking about. I'd say laughing yoga, have a look it up. Look it up. I love it. It keeps people happy. It keeps people smiling on the face. And that's what it's all about. Right, enough of laughing yoga. Now, I'm going to put you all on unmute. No, I'm not going to put you all on mute. And now we're going to go to our second feature. And Mike, so Mike Haslam, could you unmute you, please, sir? So Leila's moving to the rescue here to unmute. Right. And I'm going to put you on speaker view.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mike Haslam?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, you notice I've changed my name.
Right. Ah, right. In that case, so Leila is on. Right. So what should happen now? This is for ladies and gentlemen who are listening or watching. If you're on speaker view, then what should happen is you should either see me or see Mike. But what I'm going to do for the video, just bear with me 1 minute. I'm going to find Mike. So he's center. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? No, he's Leila. Okay, right. So we've got view on video. So now I'm going to interview Mike Haslam. Now, without further ado, good afternoon to you, sir. We spoke about this a few weeks ago. I won't introduce you again. You are the founding father of dragon boating worldwide, and that's quite a fantastic achievement in its own right. We talked a few weeks ago about the new, not the new IDBF, but we talked about an article you wrote in Dragon Sport News, and you were talking about the composition and balance of the IDBF Council. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was saying that obviously when we set up the IDBF, we set it up along traditional international sports federations lines, based primarily on the rowing federation, because Bob Wilson, who was the first president, was a rower, and I was the first secretary general coming from canoeing. So there was a similarity in federations, and they're both Olympic federations. So we set it up on traditional lines. Now, over the years, of course, we've had this huge surge in IT and communications, which we didn't have 30 years ago, not even 15 years ago, to the extent we have it now. And so, I asked myself the question, is the old model, the old way of operating, as relevant now as it was? And are there better ways to communicate? Because to me, the whole role of a federation is to communicate with the paddlers and to help develop the sport. And therefore, you have to have an interaction. Communication goes both ways.
Yeah.
Traditionally, in international federations, and you see it even today, communication tends to go one way, yes, from the top downwards. And I've always believed that that's not, the best way to do things. So I asked the question, now that today we can talk all over the world, see each other, don't have to leave our chairs, can drink our tea while we're doing it. Is the old system of having committee meetings and congresses and all the rest of it still relevant? And if it is relevant, to what degree? Yeah. And if it isn't relevant, what replaces it? So that's basically the theme of the article. That's the question. And I say that because the worrying side to me, having been involved in international sport for a long time now, is there's a tendency for those who've been elected to serve the people becoming the masters and not the servants. And they have their own little club at the top of the pile, and they make all these decisions, they have these nice, comfortable chats, and then they just push down, almost dictates in some cases, yeah, which may not be what the grassroots actually want or even need. So, with modern technology, you can communicate very easily both ways. So maybe it's time to look at how we operate as an international federation, or even at national level, or even at club level. And in some ways, coronavirus has pulled us to that point where we have to look at other ways of communicating, because we can't, social distancing and all the rest of it. So it's a good time to review the way we operate, basically, how the world works.
I mean, it's a really interesting case in point, because we've got, I think, 36 people attending today, some of those doubles. And I know I've spoken to Dave in California, Eleanor in Cyprus, so it's certainly spanning half the globe at the very least, and this will go out wider as well. But when we spoke last time, it was really interesting. You talked about the composition of the IDBF Council, as in the Big Five.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the Big Five being, if I remember rightly, GB, US, Canada, Australia, and China. And they, yeah, I would say they rule the roost, but they sort of, they govern, or how does that work in terms of that hierarchy?
It's pretty common throughout sport. If you look at the IOC, a prime example, it's started in Europe, it's still Eurocentric, yeah, and is controlled by and large by Europeans. So what you have is in some ways a restricted view of the world. You have a common view amongst a group of people that have got they're in a common part of the world, that have common backgrounds to a degree. And it's the same in a lot of federations.
Yeah.
it's particularly true with the IDBF because we, again, developed out of the UK and then Europe and then to the world. So those countries that were involved, if you like, primarily at the beginning, and therefore became the first stakeholders, elected officials, call it what you want, are still holding those positions to a large extent.
Right.
So whilst the sport has expanded to 74 countries, the main, I don't like the word control, but the main governance of the sport is still in the hands of a very few countries.
Right.
And mainly English speaking.
Yeah.
And mainly European or derivatives thereof.
Right.
Canada, USA, Australia.
Yeah.
So I asked myself, does that mean that as a sport we're starting to narrow down like other federations and like the IOC has into a very relatively narrow thought process, background process, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if it is the case, and we want to develop the sport further, how do we change that and involve more people? The Africans, for example, South Americans, okay, up until now, been difficult because people travel to meetings. Brings me back to my first theme.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I can talk to Wilfred in Uganda, or Abdul in South Africa, or Haley in China, through this wonderful medium of IT and Zoom.
Yeah.
So, you know, you bring that all together, there's got to be, I won't necessarily say a better way, but there's got to be different ways of doing things.
Well, certainly maybe more inclusive.
More inclusive, and also you can solve problems easier. I mean, you know, the big problem now is, where do we go in the future, in the near future, with coronavirus? How do we adapt the sport, which is a team sport where 22 people sitting very close together, to a sport where we have to distance ourselves in various ways from each other, which is totally the opposite to what dragon boating is all about.
Yeah.
If the sport's to continue in any meaningful way over the next few years particularly, then how do we adapt? You won't get the answers just by talking to a small group of people from 5 countries.
Absolutely.
You need to speak. You need to speak to everybody, as many people as you can, and be open about it. Have discussions, not sit like we tend to do, a small number of people on an executive meeting or a council meeting, and discuss amongst ourselves. We need a bigger input.
Right.
We need more ideas. We need more people talking to each other. We need to be more flexible.
I mean, so you reminded me of something. I do another interview program, and I found myself saying to somebody that the blessing of dragon boating is that you're all in the same boat and you're all working hard inside intimate or personal space. That's the blessing of dragon boating. The curse of dragon boating right now is you're all in the same boat and you're living or working in people's intimate and personal space. And so really the whole thing has turned on its head. And like I say, we're doing various fora, and there was a great piece of work done by John McDermott and Bob McNamara and lots of others last week, which is the American first draft of a live document. And that's the whole point about sharing that excellent work with somebody in China, somebody in New Zealand. And together we're going to come up with a workable solution. So that's the sort of thing you're talking about.
The immediate problem, obviously, is not this year. It's next year's World Championships, European Championships.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, as we all know, until there's a vaccine, COVID-19 is going to be a threat to everybody. Not a big threat to most people. Let's keep it in perspective. You know, the likes of the majority of paddlers are not going to be affected too much by it, even if they catch it. It's when you get to the old and bold, like me, in that risk factor, or if you've got underlying health issues, that's where the risk is. But nevertheless, you know, society is gearing itself up to make sure the implication is, the way it's promoted, that everybody is at risk of death. Okay, that's what the general message is. Okay, so therefore, next year, if there's no vaccine, how do we look at organising a World Championships if people, even if they can travel, may be reluctant to travel? And if they're reluctant to travel, what's that going to do in terms of not just the World Championships, but even a national championship?
Yeah.
How are we going to encourage people and make sure that they're safe and able to carry out the sport more or less in the way that we have in the past? You know, and there's various things popping up now, like, you know, traveling to other countries. You won't be let in unless you've got a health certificate that says you haven't got the virus.
Yeah.
Maybe we may have to say in Kiev next year, okay, you know, we're restricting the number in the boat from 22 to 10 or 12, and everybody must bring with them a health certificate showing that they haven't got the virus.
Yeah.
Then you can start to say, okay, well, we know they haven't got the virus, but we still have to put social distancing in. So, you know, then it raises a whole load of questions that we should be discussing now and answering now, because it's worst case scenario we need to prepare for, not best case. If it's all gone away, or there's a vaccine by December, then we don't have to worry about the championships too much the following October, because in Hong Kong, for example, where the World Championship will be, because everyone will have the vaccine.
Yeah.
If they haven't got the vaccine, then we've got a worst case scenario, and we should be preparing for that now. We should be discussing it now.
No, I'm not seeking to diminish the coronavirus at all, and I understand and I've researched it. So but I'll pose this: I've just been out in my K1 on the canal near me, and just the act of paddling, there was a risk of death. I could have turned my boat over, I could have hit my head, I could catch leptospirosis, and I'm looking at it from a risk mitigation point of view. You can't ignore things. I do know there is at least one Eastern European country who are out in dragon boats, full boats. So I need to see their risk assessment, but that's fine. But how do you start getting that balance? Even thinking about how you would achieve some sort of balance so people are happy, as secure as they can be, but the sport still proceeds in the fashion that it should be. You know, a number of people in a boat.
Well, I think that's the fundamental question, which you and I, coming from our background, probably always consider. I certainly did it in the military. I always look at the percentages. Yeah. What are the percentages? You know, when you go off into a live fighting situation, what are the risks and what are the percentages of death, injury, or whatever? Yeah. Okay. And that's how the military operates, and I'm sure the police do in a way as well. So it's the same with any situation. It has to be the same with coronavirus. You have to say to yourself, as an individual and as a group, what are our chances of getting it? Yeah. What are our chances of getting it mildly or seriously? What does it involve? What are the percentages? And the percentages, as far as I'm aware at the moment, and Leila, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, is that 80% of the population are not at any serious risk at all. I think the last figures from the UK was of all the corona deaths, and it's nearly 40,000 now, only 2 have been children. Right. And I think another factor I saw from, I think it was Italy, that 80% of the fatalities were over 79. Right. So, you know, you have to look at all of that, put in the stats, look at the percentages, look at the risks, and then have a balanced policy based on all of those factors. And then otherwise otherwise you don't go anywhere. And underneath all of that, exactly what you said, be happy. Yeah. Don't take the negative view that, you know, tomorrow we all die. Take the happy view. Tomorrow we all live, because that's what. Glass half full. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But the other thing, it reminded me, because at one stage in my career, I was in the same military unit as you. I think you preceded me by a few years. I think you were based in Wales and I was based in London. But that aside, that reminded me when you mentioned that you've got to go all these risk mitigation factors in, and you've still got to maintain the aim, to use that military term. Yeah. To have a successful international competition, a viable competition. You've got sufficient people turning up to make it a proper international competition. So the challenges are huge. Yeah, but it's even more important in our sport because we're all volunteers. Yes. You know, before I was in canoeing and running the British Olympic canoe team, I didn't have this sort of problem of taking people in. I had a budget. Sports Council gave me X amount of thousands of pounds a year to take people places. Okay, well, if you're in that situation, to a degree, you can dictate You can say, okay, we know all the factors, blah, blah, blah. We're going to this event, all your expenses are covered, blah, 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 blah. And that's not a problem.
Yeah.
In our sport, it is a problem because you've got to convince people to spend their money
Yes.
in a good and safe way. So these are all the things that we should be discussing now. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because at the moment we're not geared that way, are we?
Yeah.
You know, the IDBF, the EDBF, not geared that way. I go to EDBF exec meetings, BDA exec meetings by Zoom, but that's the group that talks, not.
Yeah.
And the other factor I find interesting is, I've always said that once you get elected to whatever level, national committee or whatever, you're not representing your club anymore. You're representing your organisation, and therefore you've got to think outside the box. What I find is that a lot of people tend to say, "Oh, well, in my club, we would do this." Well, you shouldn't be saying that. You should be saying, "Well, I'll go and confer with my club."
Yes.
And come back with a view. Because actually, if you don't do that, you're actually putting your view, not necessarily your club's view. It's very easy to get away from the grassroots, in many different ways, because we're all human. We all express our opinion and don't always say, "Oh, stop! I better find out what everyone else thinks about this before I, as their rep, spout a comment in a small enclosed room."
I think it's a very interesting point, because I think in a previous conversation you mentioned the federation, or whatever it's going to be, whichever organisation, is a servant of the paddlers rather than the paddlers being the servants of the federation. Now that's obviously you don't want a free for all, but a period of consultation and decision making has to take place, obviously. But how you manage that is quite interesting.
And it's again the same, I'm sure, in the police as the army. You've got the boss at the top. He will consult with all his soldiers right the way down to the bottom level, but then he or she makes the decision.
Yeah.
Okay, I've taken all your views into consideration, and this is what I think we should be doing.
Yeah.
And and really we should be doing the same, but on a different scale.
Yeah.
We get all the views. The people we've elected to serve us then analyse all that, and they come up with the plan. They say, okay, this is the plan. Everybody happy, and get on with it. And that's the way our constitution's written as well at IDBF, EDBF level. The final decisions are always down to the members in Congress, annually, or through the council or executive on a monthly basis. Okay. Anyway, it'd be interesting.
Very, very interesting. I understand. I heard a comment. Are you writing a book? I think we had a conversation. You said, when I write my book, tell us about your book. You're writing a book, I hear. I presume it's about paddling. It may not be.
It is. I mean, it's 40 years this year since the first dragon boats came from Hong Kong to the UK, to London. And I got involved with the dragon boat, knowing absolutely nothing about it at all. And no one else did either. So and that was at to part of the World Canoeing Kayak Championships, which I was organising in Nottingham. So it went from there. So the book is the 40 years of development of dragon boating as a modern sport. Right. I don't claim to have invented dragon boating, obviously, or even racing.
Well, you're not that old.
They're not that old. But in the terms of the modern sport, then that's where I sort of say, okay, that's what I founded, if you like. We've talked about founding. So it's that story of that 40 years. That's how I started. But then, of course, it's more or less turned into biography of my life in Cameo, as well as the dragon boat story. So it's a bit more than 40 years. Right. But the main nub of it is the 40 years of development. And at the moment, I'm sort of throwing things up in how do I write it? Do I tell the BDA story, then the EDBS story, and then the IDBS story separately, or do I tell it by year, or do I tell the ICF problem, if you want to call it that, separately? You know, the format basically is what I'm wrestling with at the moment. I've got hundreds of files and press releases and videos and all the rest of it, which I'm slowly going through, and from that I will weave the story of the first 40 years of modern dragon boating. So
if you sort of weave in some salacious detail and sort of scandal, then it sounds like you've got a feature film on the making. Well,
there'll be a few skeletons in the cupboard, I'm sure.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. Okay, one more question for you, Mr. Mike Haslam, before we open up to the throng. What makes you happy? Since that is the theme today, what makes you happy?
What makes me happy is seeing people happy because they're enjoying dragon boating.
Brilliant.
That makes me happy. What made me the happiest person was the first time at a BDA National Championships, someone said to me, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I said, "Watching the racing." They said, "Oh, do you know about dragon boating then?" So I said, "Yeah, I know a bit, you know." That made me happy because then I knew that the sport had gone beyond me, if you know what I mean. And I was just another paddler. This person didn't know who I was or what I'd done. And it was the same at IDBF level. Now, if I go to an IDBF event now, most people don't know who I am. You know, the old and bold do. And they pass me by. They don't even know who I am. That makes me happy because the sport is outgrown that first little oak seed that was planted in 1980. And it's now self-sufficient, developing. Few branches have not made it, and a few will drop off. But you know, the oak tree is there. That makes me happy.
Brilliant. Okay, Mike, hang on there for a minute. Can I invite? Thank you very much. Fantastic. Can I invite any questions? We've got a couple of minutes for questions. So, any questions from the house? If you'd like to ask Mike a question, he's here. He's live. He's direct. So, just simply unmute yourself and ask your question.
Mike, I'd just like to say thanks for your contribution, and I don't know if enough people know that we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for your contribution to the sport. So you're a bit of a well-kept secret in some places. So anyway, thank you very much for all you've done. And if you're going to put, don't put the piece in the book about the first time we met, okay?
He told me about that, actually.
That'll cost you. It was two stags locking horns in Macau, both absolutely 100% right in what they thought, and both 9% wrong. Okay, and from that forged a very good friendship. And to me, that's the sort of thing that also makes me happy. If you can talk to each other, have a good argument or discussion, and still be friends afterwards, then that's what sport is all about. Not the confrontation, but the fact that you can sit down afterwards and say, "Hey, that was a good competition," or that was a good debate. Have a beer.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Pat. Any other questions from the house before we hand over to Leila?
Okay, I'll leave you with this thought. The challenge is the IOC, Olympic recognition, the ICF. Those are the two big issues that I think collectively we have to face and deal with. And that, you know, people's questions and thoughts on that should go up the chain. And as a sport, we really have to solve these situations. Okay. I'll leave you with that thought.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure. It's been emotional as usual. Thank you, sir, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that, Mr. Mike Haslam. And can we now please hand over to Leila? So, hang on a minute. Leila, you are now
I'm here.
The host. Leila is the host.
Okay.
So just while Leila's getting ready, this is Dr. Leila Ataei, sports scientist, member of the EDBF Medical Council, who's going to talk to you today about vitamin D and respiratory infection. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Hello, folks. I just tried to get my presentation up. Just share screen. So I don't know if you see my presentation by now.
Coming up. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay, good. So, followed by my previous episode on boosting the immune systems, today I want to talk about vitamin D and respiratory infections. I just see myself. I try to, okay, now it's better. So before then, I'd like you to know this presentation is only for education purpose and has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. So, and I'm not getting paid with any pharmaceutical company. I'm not trying to sell vitamin D to anyone. So, well, this presentation has 4 sessions. I hope I'll be able to cover everything as short as possible. It's very wide subject, so I try to not go into too much details, but focus on the basic information that might be interesting. So I start with how does vitamin D work? Will vitamin D increase survival with the lung viral or bacterial infection? Then I answer the questions, will vitamin D help with acute respiratory distress syndrome? And what blood levels are necessary for maximum genes expression? So before, the focus on vitamin D was all about the health for the bones and skeleton, but today we went far more than that. We know through the research that vitamin D is actually about all the organs, and studies showed involvement of vitamin D deficiency with many different diseases, such as Alzheimer's, such as cardiovascular problems, and MS, etc. So the question is why? Why is that? So because we find out actually all the cells in the body has vitamin D receptors. What is the vitamin D receptors? For who doesn't know, receptors is like a smart door. Just let the vitamin D coming in. It's like a smart door, looked in, so security. See, okay, you are vitamin D coming. Oh no, you're not coming. You stop the others pass through. So what vitamin D does, pass through the door, come into the cell, find the DNA, and tell DNA, okay, I'm here, I'll help you regulate the vitamin D, regulate the DNA. So what the DNA is, DNA in simple terms is brains for the cell. So DNA provides all the proteins, a bunch of informations that end up to produce the enzymes and hormones that cells and in bigger terms organs needs to have a healthy life, making the healthy life for us. That question is how vitamin D support the immune systems. Well, I should say vitamin D is not boosting the immune systems. So you might say, so what is all about? So you're just talking about all the good things vitamin D does. So suddenly you're saying vitamin D is not boosting the immune system. The actual answer is vitamin D is regulating the immune system. How it's doing it? Because vitamin D is like a remote control for DNA. So when the body needs to fight with the infections, help the cells to build up more immune cells to fight with the infections. But when it's not necessary, shut it down and turn it off. So when it's necessary, turn it on. When it's not, turn it off. So it's remote control. Before I go and talk about vitamin D and respiratory systems infections, I'd like you to get a picture what happened in the body.
Well, the stocks are up 957 points.
Sorry, I have some noises here. Okay, I'll continue. So where was I? So when you get the picture that what happened when the get some infection in our lungs. So looking in this picture, we have an air sacs. Air sacs is the part of the lung. So it's the healthy air sacs here. It's open and wide and do push the oxygens easily into the blood. But here, down there, we have a infected air sacs full of the liquid, end up to pneumonia. So, but if I blow up this picture, you can see more detail. Here, we have a healthy air sacs, is open and wide, oxygen's going to the blood, carbon dioxide coming in with no problems. But in the right side of the picture, you can see the infected air sacs, which is full of the liquid. Why is that? Because as a result of infections, body tried to respond to it and fight with it. So we have a leaky area here, all the white blood cells coming inside of the air sacs to fight with the viruses. And therefore, we have a bunch of liquid here full of the dead viruses and dead white blood cells, which cause this area very toxic. So it's caused the life-threatening ARDS. ARDS is acute respiratory distress syndrome. So when we get to this point, we're rushing to the hospital. And then what happened if you're not treated well? This toxic through the breathing coming into the blood cause sepsis. And when blood loaded by toxic, it goes to the septic shock, which affecting on the blood pressure. And as a result of blood circulations, all these toxics goes all over the body and causing the systematic inflammatory response syndrome. In this situation, I think we are in the intensive room with under the oxygens and in very, very bad situations. We don't want to get to this. So how? With the good immune systems to fight with the infections in the first place without we get that much ill? The answer is, one of the answers is having enough vitamin D in our body. It's a research been done in 2015. It's very good research, shows how body would change when we have enough vitamin D to fight with the infections. Here we have a respiratory cell that fighting with different virus without the benefit of the vitamin D. As you can see, immune systems working very well, doing its job, no problem. But down there, we have a vitamin D treatment. Vitamin D, what vitamin D does actually help the immune systems to fight with these viruses effectively. So you can see it's ramping up this component. They are working more strongly, effectively. And the idea is we actually fight with the viruses before we feel it, before the body gets to the position we start feeling unwell. So to do so, vitamin D, I said, try to help the immune systems work effectively. And in the other hand, when because in a normal situation, then body fighting with the viruses or any other things causing the infections, so produce too many cells, too many immune cells. But these immune cells can also attack the healthy cells in our body and causing some problems called immunopathology, pathology causing by our immune system, which is like a own goal. So to stop that, vitamin D coming and shutting down the systems when the body starts to produce too many immune system causing damage. So shut this down and turn this on. So in this way, controlling, regulating the immune systems to fight with the infections and viruses more, in a smart way. So now, in some situation, actually vitamin D not working. We may get enough vitamin D in our body, but it's not working for us. So what's that? Why it may happen? One of the situation causing actually stopping the function of vitamin D is the medication you are taking. There are some medicines has interaction with the vitamin D actions. Is a stop metabolism of vitamin D, or stop it to be active, or in any way stopping the absorptions or action of the vitamin D. So if you are taking any of this medication, you have to make sure you have good level of vitamin D. You have to test your vitamin D in every 6 months or even 3 months. You have to take the vitamin D as a supplement, and also when you're taking the vitamin D, you shouldn't taking at the same time you're taking those medications. So choose another time of the day, and you have to remember vitamin D should be taken with a full tummy, helping to absorb vitamin D better. But in other situations also vitamin D actions would be affected. So when we have some deficiency in other nutrition, such as vitamin A. Why vitamin A is very important for the function of vitamin D? Because the receptor of vitamin D is like a two-seated vehicle. So if vitamin A not sitting here, vitamin D can't move in. So we need enough vitamin A in the area to get the good functions of vitamin D, and vitamin D can enter to the cells and do its job. Another nutrient is important is magnesium. So magnesium is necessary for the vitamin D productions and process ending to activate the vitamin D. So if we don't have enough magnesium, again, we can't have a good amount of active vitamin D. So it's too many overlaps between vitamin D and some nutrients. So it's a whole package. I talk about it in my last episode, that we need a good package of nutrients to have a good immune system. So it's not only one hand job. So now, how we produce vitamin D, where we can get the vitamin D from? The main source of vitamin D is actually sun. You can get 10,000 international units from the sun. So there is not much vitamin D you can get from the foods, I'm afraid. So to have a 10,000 international unit vitamin D that you can get it from the sun, if you want to get it from the food, you have to drink 20 glasses of milk. So I think it's impossible. So what happened for the sun? So sun has 3 types of UV: UVC, UVB, and UVA. So UVC is not even reached to the earth, so it's absorbed by ozone. We have UVB and UVA. When we need to get the sun, no questions to use the vitamin D. But dermatologists may not be happy with what I'm saying, because UVA is a bad guy, so causing damage and wrinkles and aging and even ending to cancer in some cases. So we can't get the UVB. UVB is a good guy making the vitamin D for us, but we can't get the UVB and say UVA, oh, you're not welcome. It's impossible. And there is not any sunblocks is in the market, as far as I know, that block the UVA and leave the UVB coming in. All the sunblocks either block all of them, UVB and UVA, or only the UVB that you think you cover your skin, but you are far from the damage, but you just only cover the UVB and UVA is still damaging your skin. And the other thing is you can't get the sun through the window, because the window is a stop the UVB coming in, and you still can get the UVA and damage your skin, but no vitamin D. So to get enough vitamin D, you need to be in the sun in a good time. So when is the good time? Is the between 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. that you can get good amount of UVB in your body and less amount of UVA, but still I can't guarantee you can't damage your skin. It's kind of, unfortunately, it's kind of no-win situation. But what happens when we get UVB in our skin? With the help of the UVB, we produce vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is not actually the vitamin D we need, but we need vitamin D3 to build up the vitamin D. So vitamin D3, you can get it through dietary supplement as well as all of them written on vitamin D3. So in the liver, vitamin D3 converts to the vitamin D. So here we have a vitamin D, but it's still not the active form of vitamin D. It needs to go to the kidney and convert to the active form and then go to the cells and do its job. When we do the blood test, we actually measure this one because we can't measure that because it has a very, very short half-life. So the amount of vitamin D in a blood cell is not representative of the active form. So that's why we need to have enough vitamin D in our blood to make sure we can get the good active form of it. So which is between, to have a good immune system, your blood result should be above 40 to 60 nanogram per milliliter. But it's not always possible to get the vitamin D through the sun enough because of all sorts of the reasons. So one of the reasons is the place you are in the earth. For example, I'll put you in this picture. So if you are above 37 Corolla, so no hope for you to build up vitamin D through the sun in winter. So in winter, I suggest you to take the supplement definitely, because especially if you're here. So how do we prevent vitamin D deficiency? I enough talk about the sun, but I just forgot to tell you how to get the sunbath. You don't need to be in the sun for hours. 30 minutes is enough. 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back. That's it. You don't need to expose yourself in the sun and cause yourself too much damage. But when you get the sunbath, you should go with the naked skin. So not covering with the clothes, and just get your swimming suit, and that's it. Not using the any sunblock. But even though you might need to take a supplement, at least 2,000 international units per day, you might think, oh, this is too much. This is not the RDA recommendation. Well, I should say RDA recommendation is not is between 400 to 800, which is far less than that. And I didn't have time to show you the new researchers. RDA is not very updated. You need to have a good immune system. Your body needs to get enough vitamin D, and 10,000 to 20,000 is the one you can get it through the sun. So it's no damage if you're not getting through the sun. 2,000 international unit not going to hurt you, and there is not any. It's very rare case we had. I never heard, I never come across any research that actually mentioned someone got the toxicity with the vitamin D. But to be safe side, never get vitamin D more than 10,000 IU through the supplement. And you have to take the supplement in daily basis, not inject yourself with 15,000 once a year or once a month. It's not going to work. There are some research on it. All of them says with one dose per year or per month, you're not getting anywhere. And if you take lower amount than 2,000 international units, you can't get enough benefit from vitamin D to improve your immune system. It's all I'm saying. It is conclusions of different researchers. I didn't have time to show you here. So, but in some cases, sun can't make enough vitamin D for you, and still you need to take it through the supplement. So people with the dark skin, so as dark as your skin is, the less vitamin D your body can make through the sun. So you need to, the people with the dark skin needs 4 to 6 times more than the white people. People more than people with a BMI more than 30, they still need 2 to 5 more times more sun exposure. Elderly skin is unfortunately can't make enough vitamin D. The people with some sickness such as cystic fibrosis, people living in northern latitude, or people has recently get some respiratory infections, and people with chronic sinuses with nasal polyps that can't make enough vitamin D. So all of these people needs to keep testing their vitamin D level around every 3 months, and make sure, again, I'm telling you, you have to keep your blood test about your vitamin D in your blood more than 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter to have a good result for immune systems. The conclusion, as I said, vitamin D allows gene expressions, it regulates the DNA and control immune systems through these regulations. So the amount of vitamin D in the blood is not representative of the actual active form of the vitamin D. So we need to have enough good storage in our body to get the result out of it. So, and that's it really. So we need to get vitamin D either through the sun, and if it's not possible, it's better to take the supplement. So thanks. So I think I finished here.
Okay. Beautiful. If you pass the host back to me, thank you very much. 20 minutes on the button. And if anybody has any questions for Leila, could you unmute yourself and ask a few questions? We've got a few minutes for that if you need those. So any questions from the house on the host?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if you're taking supplements, could you actually overdose, and what happens if you overdose?
Well, it's a very good question. Thank you. I was waiting for this question. I said to my presentation, more than 10,000 international units. It's better to avoid to take the supplement. More than 10,000 international units per day is the amount, the safe amount that you anyway getting through the sun. So it's not going to harm you. But more than that may cause some toxicity, and there is not any research I could get to it, and it actually mentioned somebody went to the hospital with the vitamin D overdoses. So it's very, very rare, because vitamin D, I said vitamin D is the one you're taking through the supplement is D3. D3 has to go to the blood, and then the vitamin D in the blood, only 25% of vitamin D in the blood would change to the active form. The rest is not changing, so it's hardly you can get overdose with vitamin D. I can't see any research to prove that yet. But it's better to be in the safe side. You get the vitamin D first through the sun, but then through the supplement.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Cynthia, did you have a question?
I did. Leila, I was a little confused when you were talking about the relationship between taking calcium and taking vitamin D, because most of the supplements I have seen have both calcium and vitamin D in the same supplement.
Okay. Again, another good question. There are some supplements, are a mixed supplement. It's the vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, all together as a package. Mm-hmm. What I suggest you is better to get the one is the only calcium or only vitamin D. It's better to get the vitamin D with vitamin K2. I didn't have time to explain that, but the best, if you just want to focus on immune system, take the bone health in a corner at the moment, because at the end, if you have enough vitamin D, you can build up good calcium too. So it's better to get vitamin D with vitamin K2, because vitamin K2 push the vitamin D into the organs that we actually need it. But if you have already a supplement, the calcium, vitamin D, magnesium together, if you look at the label, you can find how many calcium they have, how many vitamin D, how many whatever it is. And to cover more vitamin D, get more vitamin D and take them together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more question, please. And Rosemary, your question, please.
Thank you, Leila. Thank you for all the great information. I had a question. If I had deficiency at one point, does that mean my body can't assimilate the vitamin D and I will probably always need to have a supplement to keep my levels at an acceptable level of vitamin D?
Deficiency and you have a blood test and it actually proved that, you definitely need to take the supplement, and I'm sure your doctor advised you, because vitamin D deficiency is not a good thing to, it's not something that to ignore. So if you have deficiency, I think your doctors already gave you the amount of vitamin D you do need. But my answer to you is vitamin D deficiency is something to really consider. And if you have a deficiency, you need to take 10,000 international units per day, or make sure you get enough sun to build it in your body. You have to seriously consider that.
And then once I built it up, do I need to continue the supplement in order to maintain it? Or like, am I susceptible to be deficient in the future if I was deficient at one point?
Well, you need to repeat your blood test every 3. If you have a deficiency less than 20, you need to repeat your blood test every 3 months to make sure you're in level. But if you continue taking supplement, you might need to change the dosage. But as I said, it depends the geography you are in and how many sun you are taking. Supplement may needs for you to take even for the lifetime. So it's not going to harm your supplement, but you should have to make sure you're taking your supplement in a good day of the time after you ate, and not in combinations with those medication can actually interact to affect of the vitamin D.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Leila, thank you once again. Very comprehensive presentation, and we'll be going on the YouTube version, so you can take your time and look at all that amazing detail there as well. Thanks also to Cynthia, Rosemary and Eleanor for your questions. And what I'm now going to do is switch to our, thank you, Leila. Thank you. I'll switch to our next segment, which is, okay, good morning, everybody. This is Tim Smith, and this is Power of the World in 60 Minutes. And I'm very proud and very pleased to welcome Meri Gibson. Now, what's interesting is I'm sitting here in central England, and Meri is in, what part of New Zealand are you in, actually? That's a point.
I'm in Christchurch in the South Island.
So Christchurch in the South Island. So it's 6 o'clock here or thereabouts, and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We were just talking about how amazing this is that we're this connected, literally the other side of the world. So, Meri, good morning, good evening to you. Tell us a bit about yourself, because I know you're the president of the IBCPC, International Breast Cancer Paddling Commission. So, right off the bat, tell us a little bit about that. So how did you come to be the president of that organisation?
Well, an interesting story. So yeah, for me, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2000, or late 99, early 2000, and I didn't have any desire to be associated with anything to do with breast cancer. I basically thought, I don't want anything to do with that. It might be catching, you know what I mean? How ironic is that statement? And so basically I just didn't get involved. And then in 2006 I saw a group of women at a funeral, and I asked, who are those women with the pink boas? And someone said, oh, they're the breast cancer paddlers. And I thought, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So at the end of the funeral, I went up and had a conversation with them, and I thought, oh, this might be something for me. So sort of, 6 years later, after my diagnosis and surgery and treatment, and I went to an open day and hopped in the boat, and at the end, that was in November 2006, and at the end of the season, which was end of March 2007, we competed in the national championships. And I mean, I probably hadn't been in a competitive sport since high school. So
Wow.
to suddenly be in a competitive sport and to win a gold medal, well, you know, that was me hooked on the sport. And so I became very, very involved in the administration of the sport at a regional level and then at a national level. And I was on the board of the New Zealand Dragon Boat Association when I was approached in about 2013 to see if I would be interested in being on the board of IBCPC. And, you know, for somebody living down under, miles away from all of that activity, I was really quite surprised and thought, oh, hang on a second, why me? Why are you talking to me? What about all these other people globally? And basically they said, you know, look, hey, we've heard about you, we've seen you, we know what you're up to on the local scene and in Oceania. By that time I'd become involved in Oceania and I think you'd be really good. So I was, oh, okay. So in 2014, I was elected the Vice President of IBCPC at the Congress in Sarasota. And probably kind of 2016 of thereabouts, the then President of IBCPC, Jane Frost, signalled that she wouldn't be standing for re-election in 2018. And so I was subsequently elected at the Congress in 2018. So here we are, little girl from New Zealand, looking after all of these paddlers around the world. There's probably about 10,000 of them. So
Yeah.
It's quite amazing when you think about it. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, Tim, in terms of really globally how many breast cancer survivors there are. But the other side of this, how many we can get interested in exercise as part of their recovery.
Well, one thing that struck me with my just connections with Pink Champagne and a few other breast cancer paddlers, all cancer stuff over here, is how dynamic and involved and engaged you are. So I'm not surprised you're the president, and you strike me as exactly the right sort of person to be driving that forward. And it's amazing. And I'll quote Dr. Don McKenzie, because you can't really talk about breast cancer paddling without referencing Dr. Don McKenzie, who started it all with a research project in 1996, and I found a quote just by chance. He said, to irony, at the start of it, he says, I had a number of people question this project and say, are you sure you want to do this? Actually, and here we are. I think it was 120, or was it 220 clubs in Florence? 200, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, at Florence we had 120.
Oh, 120, right, okay.
But we have membership of 200, and as at today, with the latest team being from Romania, 246 worldwide.
Wow.
But that doesn't give a true picture,
Yeah.
because a number of those, they're called teams, but inside each of those, there could be 4, 5, 6 actual crews. So, for instance, if you look at a breast in a boat in Canada, they are registered as one team with IBCPC, but they have 6 paddling crews.
Wow.
I'm just going through the process of, making sure we have everyone on our list for the big festival coming up in 2022. And,
Right.
You have a conversation with someone and they say, oh, I want to register 2 crews. And okay, fair enough, no problem. We have you here as, say, Pink Phoenix from Portland, Oregon. And they said, oh, no, but we've got another crew. And I said, well, we only have 1 on our list.
Yeah.
No, we're a club of 100. So, so really that 246 teams globally is not an indication. You could double that really to get a much more accurate picture, which I think is really, really exciting. So probably well in excess of 10,000 people across the globe.
Isn't that amazing as a movement?
Yeah.
And just another example, I'm sure you know about them, Pink Lionesses in northern Israel. I did some stuff with them a few months ago. In fact, I should have done a training camp, but obviously we had the lockdown. And I appreciate the way society in Israel is. It's more mobilized than other societies for obvious political reasons, but they have something like 160 members and 200 waiting to join. And that's a breast cancer team. And so what do you think, if you can sum this up in a nutshell, what is the success what is the ingredient or ingredients that makes breast cancer padding so popular? It's amazing.
Well, it's interesting you just talked about Israel, because I was there running an outreach clinic last November. Right. With the ladies from Pink Lioness.
So you know Mori then? Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes. And so we've just actually, it hasn't been announced yet, but she's about to become the national rep for IBCPC in Israel. And, you know, she's a go-getter. She is just such a go-getter. And I think that is what makes this successful. There's a number of things. First of all, when you are diagnosed, you lose control. You go into a system and your specialist or surgeon or whoever it might be will say, right, you're doing this, we'll see you tomorrow, we'll do a radical mastectomy. Okay, then next week you're in for your chemo, blah, 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 whatever it might be. And then you're on tamoxifen for 5 years and you're like, holy heck, your head is spinning. Yeah. So when you join a breast cancer Dragon Boat team, all of that disappears. And we as a group, and I always say this, and people look at me really sideways and think, what is she talking about? I will say, if you've come here for sympathy, you've come to the wrong place. We're not that group. Yeah. But we have a ton of empathy. We understand. We'll be there for you 100%. But you're not special. We've all got that same badge. Yeah. We've all been on this journey. And that is what makes it, I think, really, really exciting, is that you can gain that control back. You can have a really joyful life. You can have a healthy life. You can have a really interesting and wonderful life. I would never have imagined that I would be doing the things I'm doing as part of this whole journey. It blows my mind every day. You know, the things that the opportunities, the people you meet. I strike up conversations with people I've never met face to face, but they're like your best friend, because you don't actually have to break down any barriers. They're already done. You know, it's just straight into it. And you strike up this conversation because you have a commonality. And that to me is exciting.
We were talking before we started recording about the herd immunity with the current situation, and are people sheep? Now, that's not being disrespectful, but people do gather together in groups. And what's amazing about this, and I interview, and I'm really proud actually to interview not just breast cancer survivors, but also all cancer survivor teams. And there's lots of differences between the two, but what jumps out at you is, I mean, your enthusiasm is jumping out of the screen at me. You see what I mean? And you couldn't help being enthusiastic, saying, what's going on there? How come? And I think one of the things that has been mentioned to me, that especially with ACS teams, because they have a difficulty getting men involved in ACS teams. And I think people think that if they're going to go to a breast cancer team or a cancer survivors team, they're going to be sitting around, moping around, talking about cancer. And it's not that at all. It's yes. No. Yes, there's that situation where if you need to talk about something, there's that support structure, but it's not about that. Well, it can be, I suppose, but in the main, it's all about, here we are, we didn't ask for this, but we're moving forward, and we're moving forward fast. And it's life enhancing, even talking about it. It's brilliant.
Oh, look, Tim, I'll tell you something that really I find really, really interesting, is that we have people who, A, don't have cancer, want to join us, and B, they might have some other kind of cancer. Look at the name of our organisation, International Breast Cancer Paddlers Commission. Yeah. They want to join us. And when you ask them why, they say it's because I want to have fun like you're having, you know, and I want to be part of that. And that's so exciting. Now, you mentioned men. So in Florence, we had 3 male paddlers, and one of them, I don't know if you know him, but his name is Mark O'Connor, and he is from Ireland. And Mark is fabulous. I really recommend you have a chat with Mark. And he's just such a fun character. But he talks about how important it is for men to get checked, because his breast cancer was very aggressive. And what he is the most amazing supportive wife who she's a paddle widow. She comes along to things, and she and she just loves to see him happy and engaged and talking about his journey. And I mean, I just use the word journey, and it's not one that I really like to use a lot in this situation. I prefer to use adventure, because it is a bit of an adventure. You often don't know what's around the next corner, and you have to deal with it as it comes up. But, Mark is great. And then there's another man, Frank, he's from Germany, from Pink Patrol. So he's a former policeman, and big burly bloke, with breast cancer. And they're donning the pink, and they're out there paddling their hearts out. And, I think it's a really, really important message, and that we are getting out there. This is, as I said earlier, it's about that, getting that control back, getting that joie de vivre, and that exercise is the medicine. If you can throw the other drugs out of the window, don't do that if you're not supposed to, but if you can, and you can embrace exercise, then what a great life. If you think about it, a lot of average age in this gig is about, in the 50s. And, we have some as young as 27, 28, 29, some as old as mid-80s, but average age is probably in the 50s. Yeah. And most of those women and men wouldn't have been involved in any exercise since leaving school. And to then come back, and as Don McKenzie used to say, first of all, getting in the boat was enough. Then it was, we want to at least finish the race. Yeah. Then, hold on a minute, we want to come first in our lane. And first in our lane is a phrase we use a lot. First in our lane. But no. Then you want to be first overall. So it's interesting, isn't it? From no real sport or sport background, suddenly you want to be out there racing and competing. And I see this at the participatory festivals. Oh my gosh, you'd think it was the Olympics, the way they start talking. Oh, we did a better time than so-and-so, and we can, we're so much better, and we're the best team in New Zealand, or the best team in the USA. Hold on a minute, ladies and men, it's participatory. No, that goes out of the they forget.
Really interesting point there, and it's I've watched that same progression, and it's still going on with the team I'm connected with in the UK, Pink Champagne. That transition from they call it. I mean, they call it dolly paddling, which is basically stuff where you're paddling down the river and people are hooting their horns. It's a pink boat and they're waving at them, to becoming a bit more serious, a bit more motivated, and the genesis, the development into a race team. But I was interested in the way the IBCPC festivals are configured, because they are participatory and they are competitive at the same time. So just for the benefit of the viewers and listeners, how I think it's amazing how you do it. It's simple, but how do you achieve that? How do you achieve that?
Oh, look, it's so interesting. First of all, I just want to acknowledge Pink Champagne, because Wendy and her crew are fabulous. They've just walked the length of Britain. They've climbed mountains, all from the safety and comfort of their home and staircase, brilliant. And Wendy's setting up that Pink Royals team to travel, brilliant, because a lot of crews don't have enough paddlers to travel. Really, really awesome. So I love their enthusiasm. Great girls. And when you look at how we achieve that, well, I can tell you that the steers and managers meeting in Florence got a bit heated, because it was questions like, well, will you be timing it? Will we be deducted if we're not drumming at 50 metres? And I had to keep reminding them that it was participatory. Yeah. And sure, yes, we'd like you to do all of those things, but no, you won't be penalised, So basically, you just set a draw. You can't set a race draw based on how people have performed, because it's global. It would be impossible. Yeah. So you just set a random race draw, and your first one goes on, and so on and so on and so on, and you keep going through those progressions until you get your fastest crews in the final. and that there was a crew from New Zealand that was in the final in Florence, and they told everyone they were second best in the world and all that. And I thought, if you really want to say that, you need to go to the Club Crew World Championships. But sure, look, take the kudos, take the bling, if it makes you feel good, then that's all that's important. Honestly, that's all that matters, isn't it?
I mean, what was
at the end
interesting
of the day?
I don't know where, I can't remember. I think where Pink Champagne I think there was something like, say there was 20 races, for example, whatever there was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on the first day you did I was a race coach anyway, so you did a ranking race. So people ended up in about the same peer group in terms of time performance. And the second day you had a series of finals. You may have 20 finals. And what I thought was really simple but brilliant was that you ended up, I think Pink Champagne may have been in the 10th seeded group, and they come first, second, third, or fourth. They didn't say to me, we came first, second, third, or fourth in the first final or the 20th final. And by a very simple stroke of administration and choreography, you achieved that. And people came back and they come first or second or third or fourth, and that was it. And it was participatory as well. And I thought it was so simple, it's brilliant, because I was wondering how you'd achieve that, and it's really, really interesting.
Because if you were a statistician and you analyse that, they might be out of 120 teams sitting about 50th overall, but in their final they came first or second or third. So that's where they felt fabulous. That's where the kudos was, and and then bringing those crews together for the flower ceremony at the end, and adding that final race in memory of Sandy Smith, where you have a paddler from every crew. And actually, interestingly, for 2022, I've been asked by a number of people if I will suggest that crews, when they nominate a person for that particular race or boat, that they nominate someone who's stage 4, who will pass away. Stage 4 is, the last stages of life. And because a lot of them may not be well enough to paddle, and to be able to be in a race with such, I feel a bit emotional now thinking about it, but with such an emotive element to it, for them is, for a lot of people that come to these festivals, it's one of the last things they'll do, one of the last big hurrahs. And so, to be able to honour that in some way is really special. And, it does require a lot of schmoozing and politics and just really appealing to people's better nature. And I think that overall we can achieve that. So, it's pretty special.
And you mentioned 2022. Where is the 2022 festival?
Guess what? Guess where? It's in New Zealand.
Is it really?
So it's in New Zealand. So there's quite a process that you have to go through. Any festival bids have to come from a member team, and the member team then really funds everything. IBCPC does not have the funds to fund it, so it's hosted entirely by that team. And you can imagine, the costs and transport and everything. I mean, to give you an idea, in New Zealand alone, the budget for the transport's about $350,000. So it's huge amounts of cost involved. It will be at Lake Karapiro, which is in the North Island, near Cambridge. And that lake is a world-class rowing lake. They had the World Rowing Championships there in 2010. So it's of a very, very high standard. It's a hydro lake, very deep, very wide, all of those things. And in a very quaint English town, little town Cambridge, in the Waikato, which is dairy country, so it's very green.
That's great.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hopefully you'll let us all in by then.
Look, if you have a word to, just get me to talk to the Prime Minister and I'll sort it out for you.
Fine. Another question for you. I mean, I've just had sight of, Bob McNamara, Dr. Bob McNamara from America. He's just released some Dragon Boat teams and clubs re-entry guidelines, which I'm very happy sent to you. I mean, it's an open document. And obviously, something I saw in there that was obvious but worth stating about people who have either are immunocompromised or compromised immune systems, how they end up getting back into dragon boats. Because I always say, I mean, the blessing and the curse of dragon boating is you're all in the same boat and you're all doing something apart, you know, the same activity inside people's intimate personal space. So that's the blessing of the sport. And it's right now, it's also the curse of the sport. So how are you thinking about getting people, I mean, not now, but how, over time, how are you thinking about staging that and advising people how they're going to sort of negotiate and navigate that problem?
Yeah, well, we've had a few questions about that because obviously it's very different all over the globe. So when I talk to people, I say, look, at the end of the day, you have to do what is appropriate in your own country. You have to follow your own regulations, and you know it's got to come from the top down. And then you need to look at what's the directive from the government, what's your local, regional club, so on. So that's the only advice we can give. But when I look at what's happening in New Zealand, so we are allowed to paddle. That approval came with when we went to level 2 and gatherings of 100 people. So we are what is considered a group, and we can trace everyone in that group. And the way that we will do that is we could have gone on the water this weekend, but because it was Queen's birthday celebration weekend for us, everyone was away, you know, people were travelling. So next weekend will be our first day back on the water since the end of our paddling season at the end of March. And so what we will do is we'll take a 20-man boat out. Sorry.
You're back. It's all right.
Sorry.
I can hear you anyway. So.
Oh, can you see me now? Decline.
No, I can certainly hear you though. There you go. You're back. You're back.
Oh goodness. So what will happen is that we will go out as a team, and we will get someone to sit on the front of the boat in the drummer's seat, and they will take a photo down the whole boat. So we'll know who's in the boat and who sat next to who. Right. And then our team owns our own boat. So we're at a slight advantage, which means that we can, we can control the use of that boat, who uses it, how clean it is. So when we take it out and bring it back in, we will clean it down and disinfect the gunnels. And then we also own our own life jackets. So each of us already takes our own life jacket home. And then we have a set of team paddles, but each of us will be allocated a paddle to take home, which we will clean down and look after. So that way we can, keep all of our, equipment to ourselves. But the way that we can track and trace is through that very simple method.
That is brilliant, because I mean the stuff that Dr. Bob McNamara has mentioned, it's fairly broad scope, but it's really a step in the right direction and initiating. But nobody yet has mentioned that very simple method you've talked about there, having a community bubble of the crew. Of course, the surveillance. That's once again, and the problem. There's the solving of the problem is going to be from a variety of sources. It's not going to be myself, Bob, anybody else, Pat in America saying, let's do this. It's going to be everyone getting together and working out the problems, seeing what works for you. Brilliant. I've got one more question for you. It's a question I ask everybody. Mary, what makes you happy?
Oh, it's really, really simple. Spending time with my son. First and foremost. Second, walking the dog on the beach. I love being by the water. It's so soothing and just makes you feel really, really relaxed and chilled out. And I mean, dragon boating is probably down the list a little bit for me compared to other things. One of the things I do in my spare time is review movies for a local radio station.
What?
So I've really missed that because I haven't been able to go. So we just started again last week. So my first review went up last week and just did the second one today. So I love that, but really enjoy hanging out with my mates from the boat as well, I have to say. They're a good bunch.
Well, I'll tell you what, that has been absolutely fantastic. And I've got to say, I mean, it's your dynamism, your enthusiasm, your energy just jumps out of you. And it's been, I'm going to say, it's early in the morning here. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Any final words? But thank you very much from me.
Oh, look, all I want to say is, and I'm not sure what your audience or who your audience is, but look, live each day to the max. Take everything you can out of it. Suck the life out of every moment, because you just do not know what's going to happen to you in the next hour or two, you know, so just enjoy every single thing that you can. That's all that's me. That's my mantra.
Thank you.
I have a very short segment today, but before I get into my segment, I want to talk a little bit about our first guest, Mike Haslam. I just want to share with you something that happened this past August in Thailand. I was up on the podium, and they have different, when you're up on the podium, they have different IDDF dignitaries that pass out the medals. And normally what you get is a medal placed around your neck, and you get a handshake and a congratulations. I think it was probably the first medal I won. I was up on the podium and Mike was passing out the medals. What he did was a lot different than anyone else. As he passed out the medal to each contestant, each paddler, he had a little personal message for each person, which was just so cool. It wasn't your standard, here's your medal. So each paddler he would walk up to, he would place the medal around your neck, and he would look you in the eye, and he would give you a very sincere, heartfelt message. Probably most of us he didn't even know, but he would find something, a little personal message to tell each paddler. And it's kind of cool because when you're on the podium, you're very emotional to begin with. And to watch him do this, he's a special guy. It takes that's a special thing for him to do. There was no rush. He was taking his time. He made you feel like you really deserve to be up there. I remember what he said to me. He looked at me and he said it was like the first day of racing. He said, you look tired. He said, you got a lot of racing left. He said, but you'll be okay. And I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget him passing out those awards. It was something special. It was almost as good as getting the medal itself. And that's the kind of people that make this sport so great. It's people like him. It's just something I needed to say. So thanks, Mike, if you're still out there. So now I'm gonna get into my little segment here. I was told last week by our producers that this week's episode would be about females in the sport. And then I kind of had a rough idea what I wanted to talk about. And then that plan sort of got changed a little bit. But I decided I'm going to stick with my original plan, and I'm going to talk about females in the sport. I'm going to be pretty quick here. I'm just going to talk about two different things. I want to talk about paddling with females as a paddler, and then I coach a premier women's team, and I want to talk about how that team came to be a premier women's team. So the first thing I want to talk about is paddling with women. So I'm not a big guy. I'm a smaller guy. So where I fit in the boat is not in the middle of the boat where the heavier paddlers sit. I sit in the front of the boat. I sit in the back of the boat. Those areas of the boat in a mixed boat are typically female paddlers because they're smaller. So I'm smaller too, so I kind of fit into that group. I just want to talk a little bit about paddling with the girls. It's really no different. I don't really look at it as us being males or females. I look at us being athletes. And probably the most important thing is we're teammates. And when I'm paddling there's no male female thing. It's just, we all have the same goal, and that's working as a team together and moving that boat forward as fast as we can. So that's just sort of my quick perspective on paddling with the women. And you know, do I miss maybe the male bonding in the middle of the boat? Maybe a little bit, but we have our own bonding that goes on in the front of the boat. We have our own bonding that goes on in the back of the boat. So I'm welcomed into their group, and I'm fine paddling with the girls, and I actually love paddling with the girls. So that's all I really have to say about that. It's just kind of cool that, you know, there's a place in the boat for everyone. The second thing I wanted to talk about is I coach a women's team in Minocqua, Wisconsin, which is far northern part of the state. I just want to tell you how I got involved in becoming a coach of a women's team. In 2016, Minocqua, Wisconsin decided that they were going to hold a dragon boat festival, and people up there had no idea what a dragon boat even was. So I got involved. I got on the committee, and it was going to be a fundraiser. And at one of the committee meetings, I told them, I said, you need to do something to make people aware of what a dragon boat is. I said the best thing to do would be to buy a boat, put that boat on the water. There's a lake right in the middle of town, and people will see the boat and they will say, what is that? Or how do I get to do that? And you're going to create interest in your event. So I was kind of surprised. They said, sure, we'll buy a boat. So they bought a boat. And so in 2016, I basically got this boat, and I decided at that time I was going to try to create a mixed club team. So I advertised like in the local newspaper, that kind of thing. And I ended up, I had 5 women and 2 men. So I really didn't even have enough paddlers to even take the boat out. What I did next was I contacted a women's kayak club in town. And it was an older group of women that were just, it was just kind of a fun thing for them. And I said, would you guys be interested? We have open seats in this boat, and we practice, I don't know, back then it was probably 2 days a week. Would you be interested in just coming out? It's just going to be a fun thing. You know, I'm not going to beat up on you or anything. And I got like 5 or 6 of these women from this kayak club that were interested. So it was cool because now I had enough people to actually take this boat out. So we'd take the boat out, we'd just have fun. So then the festival came around. The festival was the end of the summer, and the festival was a great success. They made a lot of money for the charity. The boat was then put away for the winter. And what I did next was I contacted all the captains of the community teams that attended that festival. And I said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to start this mixed club team. And can you forward my email to everyone that was on your team and let's see if anyone's interested. So I expected I was going to get all kinds of people that were interested because the festival was over with. Now they had a taste of dragon boating, and it didn't work. During the winter, I got 2 replies, and believe it or not, they were both women, right? So now I go into 2017 season, I have 7 women and 2 guys. So I say to myself, what can I do here? I said, well, maybe I should try to create a women's team because I have 7 of them. I only have 2 guys. So I again started advertising, and the word started to spread. And in 2017, I ended up with probably 15 or 16 women, which was good. I had almost a full boat. But it was growing, right? It was growing. 2018, 2019, the team just, it exploded. The team took off. It's just, it's kind of a good story because women actually saved that team, right? I was going nowhere with trying to start a mixed team. And then the women's kayak clubs, you know, we were able to take the boat out, and then we grew. And now we're a pretty successful premier women's team. that's really all I have to say today. I do have a couple more things. So I've been wearing these hats lately, and on Wednesday night, my wife asked me, she said, "Are you going to be on the show this week?" I said, "Yes." She said, "What are you going to be talking about?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be talking about kind of women in the sport." And I said, "I'm worried though. I'm trying to decide which hat to wear, what kind of hat to wear." And she said, "I have a hat that you might want to try." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "Let me go get it." So she went and got the hat. And as soon as I saw the hat, I said, "Oh, this is cool. So here's my hat of the week." Okay. Y'all like this? It's nice, isn't it? You can actually do some cool things with it. There's like I don't know what you'd call this, the pirate version or whatever, but it's kind of cool. I think I kind of like the side thing here. That's kind of neat. Anyhow, that's my hat of the week. I also have my motivational board, right? I've been using that every week. So yesterday I tried to look up quotes from famous women because I wanted to put something on there, a famous quote from a woman. I'm going through these women's quotes and nothing's really jumping out to me. And then all of a sudden I saw one and I said, "Oh, this is it." So one really got my attention. Here's what I got this week for you. I did it for the fun of it. And that's the famous female aviator, Amelia Earhart. She said that. And that's pretty cool. That's very, very fitting for our sport because after all, that's what this is all about. It's all about having fun, right? So that's about it for today. One more thing I forgot to add. I don't know what the numbers are, but I would say it seems to me that new paddlers coming into the sport right now is probably 2-to-1 women to men. So women, you have a very strong showing in the sport. So let's just keep it up. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you. And I'm going to switch this over to Pat. Oops. Uh-oh.
Just while you're doing that, can I just assure people that Meri Gibson's interview, the breast cancer paddling commission interview, will be going out on the YouTube version, so you'll get the full one. It's a great interview, very enthusiastic lady. So thank you for your patience on that. Thanks, Mike.
Tim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, can you switch it over to Pat? I lost all my screen.
No, I can't. What we could do, Pat, if you don't mind, if you come up, because you're still the host, Mike, so Pat could come up and do it audio rather than visual. So, Mike, if you look nice with your hat, and Pat could sign off from your screen.
You can do it from the small screen.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. Mondrall, the hats are starting to come together. Today was interesting. You look like somewhere between a combination of Clint Eastwood and the Flying Nun. Anyway, I'll make this really quick. It's been long today, and maybe that's the way this is going to end up. Maybe we're going to end up being a 90-minute episode or close to that. But since I've been physically removed from our sport, it just seems I'm learning so much more than I would have if I was busy running down to the boats all day. So yeah, thanks to the presenters today. And a reminder that the recorded versions are available on YouTube as well as Heat International Facebook. They're all posted there as well. Next week, guys, totally international. Nobody from the US next week, except maybe another Mondrall moment with a new hat. We're going to have Alfredo Wandasel. And Alfredo runs a club or coaches a club in Cartagena, Spain. So he's going to tell us all about what it's like to have a competitive program in Spain. And then we have Ana Marcos from Argentina, South America. And her husband, excuse me, her and her husband, Alejandro, developed the first dragon boat club in Argentina. And I had the pleasure of meeting her recently. She took our level 1 and level 2 course with us. So very enthusiastic group and really interesting to see what they're doing down there in South America. And last but certainly not least, from Johannesburg, South Africa, Lenore Hammond. And Lenore is a BCS paddler as well as a competitive paddler. And she's going to be sharing with us what it's like to paddle in South Africa, how dragon boating is doing in South Africa. So anyway, it's been a long session today. Thank you to everybody. Good seeing you all. And that's all I've got. So have a great weekend, and look for the recorded sessions. And tell your friends, because we're having a blast with this. Talk to you later.